Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
All right, guys. It is Tuesday. Nothing, don't have a ton on the docket today, but we do have S&P PMIs. So, could be an okay day. Let's come over, check out the charts, shall we? Well, you can see the Treasuries didn't do too much yesterday. We are getting back up to that higher end of the range. Yeah, just realize, oh, this is a super tiny range, like again, 113 even is kind of like the key spot above us, and it's not that far. It's only a skip up there, right? I should also note a little bit of flattening in the curve. S&P 500 had a good day yesterday, though. I mean, man, it had a really good day yesterday, in fact. I don't know. This reminds me so much of 2019-ish. Maybe not 2019-ish, like maybe 2016, like the first part of Trump's first presidency, where it just like it kept going up and up and up every day, and we're like, how is this possible? How is this sustainable? This is crazy. And it never really stopped, not until COVID. So we got a really wild market going on right now. Well, the oil taking a little bit of a bounce this morning, although I have to say that is all over the place, right? Okay, gold and silver. Whew. Gold and silver are just bonkers right now. At that rate, remember when we were having a hard time getting above 3,000? Now we're eyeing 4,000. It is just crazy, and silver is getting to $44. Keep in mind, the all-time high in silver is 50. The all-time, let me come to it closer. The all-time high in silver is 50. We are only $8 away from that, and people aren't even talking about it yet. So this thing has way further to go. Or if it keeps going and like the larger public gets involved, it has way further to go. All right. Kappa's just kind of doing its thing. It's nothing too interesting over there. Japanese yen. And I like it when the Japanese yen doesn't move too much, right? So this 97 in the dollar. And then Bitcoin. Yeah, Bitcoin took it on the nose past 2 days. Over the weekend and on Monday. Nothing too interesting this morning in Bitcoin though. But I bet you that they're gonna make another move. It's almost always the case that when they get hammered, that somebody comes along and just mysteriously buys it up. They print more Tether and it's just like clockwork. So we'll see what happens over there. Oh, you know what? I wasn't even showing you guys. I didn't even go back to the chart. There's copper, Japanese yen, Bitcoin. Okay, so here in 1 minute, we are going to get U.S. current account. That's usually not a huge mover, but it is one that we're going to want to keep an eye on. We also, on the docket today, we have Fed's Bowman speaking, ECB kosher, and then at 9:45 Eastern Time, U.S. S&P Services and Manufacturing PMI flash. That's not the big one, but any PMI is significant. So, and then let's see here. We got Trump speaking this morning, Bostic speaking at 10 o'clock, and the Richmond Fed Composite Index at 10 o'clock as well. And Powell is speaking today as well. Powell, 2-year note auction. So pretty. I wouldn't say any of these are significant pieces of news, but there's a lot on the docket for today. Well, I'm going to try and stay keyed in here on this, but when I see that for the first 10 minutes we've only gone 4 ticks, it's usually not the best sign. On news, not too much significant overnight. Biggest news story I see overnight is Antifa officially designated as a domestic terror group. What do you think about oil move? Well, it is getting really chippy over there in oil, right? You come back over here and zoom in on this, right? It was down. We had a little wave. Now we're having a big wave up. I don't think oil knows where it wants to go. It kind of looks to me. Oh yeah, it is a good point. I do need to roll that over. Let's do that over here. Move over to November. Don't have anything else that needs to be switched, do I? No. Now, I guess I should give you another view of oil, because probably the reason you're asking about it is because when you look at it this morning, it's like pretty positive. Like, this was a very positive swing, and this is fairly positive swing. So, like, it looks like that at the moment they do have some upside momentum in oil. Man, when I pop on Reddit, I'm just seeing this one video of a guy using a AI doppelganger sort of a thing to make him look like a girl, saying it's over. But I'm like, we've been able to do that for a while, haven't we? Although this girl does look more realistic to me. Yeah, after that last day, gold, oil, fine. Yeah, you know, cause here's the thing that, oh man, I am like not doing very good keeping track of which, screen we got. What I'm seeing in the market is there are 2 major theories. I think that you could kind of put this to like, there's 2 major sides on the Federal Reserve Board, right? One side thinks that because of tariffs, we are at risk of higher inflation. And the other side thinks that because of tariffs and a weak market to begin with, that the labor market is at risk of just completely collapsing and deflation coming in. Now, I have kind of been on the second of those two. I've been saying for a while, labor market is weaker than it appears. You're not seeing mass unemployment, but it would not take very much to push it over the edge and to see that start to happen. And for the people that are unemployed or are looking to switch jobs, it really, really, really sucks right now. The issue here is that the asset managers all seem to believe case number one. That's what's going on. Now, of course, at that point, if I say, well, the economy is at risk, the labor market could just collapse underneath of us. First of all, I would, like, how do I defend that against the fact that it seems like it's a minority opinion, right? Well, first of all, I do think that these other guys, they understand that that is a risk. They do understand that that is a risk. They just don't think it's as big of a risk as the risk of inflation, right? But I think there are two things going on here that is causing them to believe this. One is that your traditional economic models, that's what they're going to show. Your traditional economic model is basically going to show that because of inflation from tariffs, that's going to feed back into further inflation and that's going to last for several years. I also think that there is some recency bias coming in, right? Like, we just came off of a period of very high inflation, and so that's what investors are the most concerned about, right? But I would argue that our economic models are simply not sophisticated enough to be able to deal with the dynamics of a trade war or an increase in tariffs like this. Our economic data itself is poorly suited to telling us what's going on, right? We've had all of these issues with the labor market. The birth-death model is just not very good, so we underestimate how many jobs are being lost by millions. And this all kind of feeds back into a situation where I kind of feel like we're flying blind. I kind of feel that we're flying blind. And the issue is that you're not going to get inflation if everybody is so strapped that, they're afraid of losing their job or have already lost their job, and just basically what's going on. That's why, otherwise, I think that you probably would have already seen some CPI inflation. Companies literally can't pass it on because consumers can't afford it. And on top of all of that, you've got what is increasingly becoming a housing crisis in the United States. Like, it was crisis levels in Canada and maybe in some areas of the United States, and now it's basically everywhere in the United States. People cannot afford rent anywhere, and that cuts down on what they're able to spend on too. So you're probably going to see something really similar, in some ways really similar to what we saw before COVID through the entire 2010 to 2020 decade, which is basically central banks are printing and printing and printing and printing, and all of that money goes into certain financial assets, or in this case, it will go more into housing, and you won't actually see the inflation or the velocity of money change like you think it should. The only thing holding the job market together is the administration's tough immigration stance, in my opinion. So I honestly am not factoring that side of it in. So when you're looking at the top line numbers, that is definitely a thing. Like, we have lost a lot of workers, and in certain industries, particularly like agriculture, that is definitely having an impact, right? But when I'm looking at the job market and saying the job market is not as strong as it appears, I'm primarily thinking about tech jobs. Like, tech jobs are, they're saying like a third of the economy is in a recession. Tech is in a recession. And the issue is that tech, that's like your middle class, upper middle class. Like, that is the only section of society, is tech and finance, that over the last 20 years have actually done well. So how are you going to sustain this strong, very consumer-based economy if the people that are doing the best are out of work, right? That is going to spread. And it's not something that happens all at once, right? There's kind of this spot at which, like, because you get 6 months of unemployment, and then maybe you can last 6 months on it. But then you kind of get to this point where if you don't get a job, then you're kind of screwed, right? And yeah, so that's going to have knockoff effects, I think. Tech now has H-1B restrictions. Yeah, but you're not going to be seeing that in the economy yet, right? I'm honestly, though, the H-1B thing is honestly, how should I put this? I'm going to say confusing. I think that there are some things about this H-1B issue that are confusing. So the data that I have seen suggests that tech salaries are 4 to 5% lower than they otherwise would be because of the H-1B visa program. Okay. On the other hand, it's not that easy to get an H-1B. It really is not. So it's kind of crazy to me that they're as common as, I mean, that there's as many that's the thing, is like, we know that they're getting a certain number a year, and we even know like which tech companies are using them and everything. But I'm still kind of like, but the data is that it's kind of on the edges, right? So now the issue is that the policy that they're putting in place is just for the next lottery, which basically means, one, it probably will force the H-1B program to be used the way that it's supposed to be. It'll be interesting to see how it goes, because maybe not enough people apply with that rule change. That 100,000 is too much and not enough people apply. But that could happen. It basically will turn into like, this person has to have extraordinary skills. And there are other visas that you would probably rather do than H-1B in that case anyways. So the whole thing is kind of weird. The thing I think that is funny about it is that when the people that are like very pro H-1B visa come out, they're like, you're not going to be able to fill all of your tech jobs. Like, there's not enough people in the U.S. economy to do this thing, yada, 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 yada. Well, that's not true, because I know all sorts of people that are out of work. I know all sorts of people in tech that are out of work. Yeah, there's not enough people to do it at the price that you want. So we're basically, people are straight up admitting that it's all about reducing wages for tech workers. But then at the same time, there's this thing that's kind of like, well, having low wages is kind of good for GDP. And this kind of comes to this other issue that I see, which is that we've created an economy where workers are the most undervalued they've ever been. Man, I can tell you all sorts of crazy stories about the way that companies treat employees. And I see a lot of companies make really dumb hiring decisions too. But it's because the system overall, it like incentivizes it, like, oh, if this one person is not, you think that they want too much or whatever, you can probably find somebody cheaper. It just depends on how much you want to lower your standards, right? And then the issue always comes into, well, here's our standard. We need him to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And then they want to pay you like, way too low. That's kind of what's happening to me right now. So maybe I'm just projecting. But kind of what's happening to me is I got all the skills that they need, and they want somebody to do it for 40% less. And I'm like, okay, good luck with that. Don't think you're going to find it. But this is a larger problem in corporate America, is that like I think that this is a generational problem. I think that boomers, and then as a consequence of Gen X, simply do not understand, do not know how to mentor whatsoever. So they have to hire somebody that literally already knows what's going on, that somebody that, they were put into a job and they figured it out by themselves, because they don't know how to teach them. That's also why you get all of these Gen Z people. They come in and they say like, well, we don't, they don't like hiring Gen Z and Gen Alpha. We just call it Gen Alpha? I think so. It goes to Z and then back around, right? They like, there's lots of surveys and studies showing that companies don't like to hire based off of it. And it's because they weren't mentored by their parents in school. They weren't mentored during college, university, or anything, and they're getting into the workplace and they've got absolutely nothing, and they don't know how to mentor them in the workplace. You don't need a degree to have the skills to work in techs, not purposefully, but in my entire team, I'm the only one with a CS degree, and as you know that, but a lot of corporate America don't. Oh yeah, that's actually really interesting, Brandon, because pretty much everywhere that I've worked, everybody had a CS degree. My boss, we're in the middle of switching bosses right now. My boss at work, he did not, but he's older, right? He got into it like early on. It's kind of weird. It's just like, there are so many things that when I was a kid, and people would talk about them, or like talk about issues historically, and then it would be like, but that's not really an issue today. We don't deal with that now. And then I get older and we deal with those issues. And I'm like, was it always that way? Or like, did we regress in some way? And one of the ways in which I see that is credentialism. Like, I was told, well, you know, it's all merit-based, and if you have the merit, then you're going to get, you know, promoted to, you know, reasons and this and that, right? And as things have gone along, I'm kind of seeing, like, no, actually, that's not what happens. I see lots of people at jobs that I don't think that they're really being allowed to live up to their full potential because they're just not being given the opportunity. And they give all of the opportunity to, well, you went to an Ivy League school, for instance, right? Like, I really think we could start a trading software company, and with a couple of developers and salespeople, we could put together a really good product and make a sustainable business, right? There's lots of trading software companies out there, you know. I think that we have some key insights and some technical little developments that have happened that other platforms aren't taking advantage of, that I think could really give us an edge and allow us to be the best software out there for stock and futures trading, right? But you're never going to get the opportunity to start that business because you need certain amount of money coming in anyways to pay people, right? Yeah. How do you, and that's a lot of, you know, developers are expensive. That's like at least $100K per developer. We would probably want at least three guys. That's $300,000 a year. Where are you going to get that from? Somebody's going to have to fund it. And who's going to fund you? If you're not an Ivy League or whatever the deal is, right? Well, I want to believe that the market is efficient, but the reality is that they're not. And the labor market is probably the most inefficient of them all. Brandon, when did you get hired? When did you get hired? Because I tell you what, man, I've seen some people. There's this one guy, worked at not the last two places ago. You remember I worked one place for like how long was it? 7 years, 6 or 7 years. Worked somewhere for 6 or 7 years, and then I went to another place and I worked for a year, and then they were culling. And since I was the newest guy, they got rid of me. And then it's been a year since that, right? But there's this guy from two jobs back, and I see him on LinkedIn, and he's looking, and I was always super impressed with that guy. I was like, I kind of wanted to pull him over onto our team, except for that we didn't need it, you know, like we didn't have the, and he's not finding anything. It's just like bonkers to me. I started at 2018. Oh, well, there you go. Yeah. See, it's like after 2022. Like, I think the one that's the most brutal is all of those people that went to like coding camps and whatnot. And if you went to a coding camp and you didn't get experience before 2022 and like get your foot in the door, then you're like absolutely screwed. It's a market sucks for everyone, but it's really brutal to deck. Yep. So again, the question is, how long can that go on for before it spreads to the rest of the economy? Well, we cut rates once. We're going to probably cut rates again one more time. We'll see where we're at in a month. Maybe just those little interest rate cuts are enough to free things up and you know, get some things going again. If you're a junior, you're double screwed. No one wanted to hire juniors before, and now people think you can replace them with AI. Okay, this is the thing that I don't get it. Like, there has to be some larger systematic issue at play here that we're not aware of, because just the logic behind, you know, we don't need juniors, like AI can do everything, makes zero sense to me. It makes zero sense to me. Like, why hire a senior if you can hire like a bunch of juniors, you know, like if I can, for 2 seniors, I can probably hire 3 juniors. And if I give them the AI tools, I can probably make them almost as effective as the seniors. The only thing is that you need seniors to know what to do. What are the biggest problems? Where should we go? Code quality guys, things like that, right? Because I think there's a real skill to using AI, and so you need to know about the subject, but you don't have to be a senior to be effective with that. But at the same time, I'm not seeing that many senior roles posted either. So, and especially if you want to get into things like staff and this is kind of funny. I think that in the past 6 months, the number of like staff, principal, those kind of higher level positions has like declined. So I don't know. But part of that is just going to be where I'm at, right? The Utah tech sector is very much dependent on startups. And since there's like no startups right now, what are you going to do, right? I don't know. I'm sure at some point it will flip back around again. They'll be like desperate, absolutely desperate. I guess maybe one of the other problems though. Ooh, I don't like to think about this one, but it also seems to me, you see this thing where a guy was suing because the ATS systems were filtering him out, and he was saying that it's because he's over 40. That's another one. It's like they don't want anybody over 40, which to me just seems so crazy. It's just like, I know more than the kids coming out of school. Like, the kids coming out of school seem so tech illiterate to me. Even some of the ones that are like computer science, because they weren't tech people. They did it because they were told there was the money in it. People are thinking about this all wrong? Maybe. That's where I say, like, my tendency, because of what we know about market microstructure and complexity economics and all those sorts of things, makes me think that we're attributing, you know, oh, well, people don't want to hire old people. They don't want to hire junior, senior, and it's because we've picked some faulty logic and they're going along with it. But it makes me wonder if maybe there are some deeper dynamics going on there that make it not feasible to hire juniors, for instance. The tech sector is in recession. Why doesn't it get reflected in stock price? Maybe it wouldn't be accurate to say the tech sector overall, but the tech jobs market is in a recession. But I think what you're seeing in the tech sector right now is insane amounts of spend on AI. So this is another big risk. I don't know at which point this risk becomes a problem. I don't think it's right now, though. But essentially, they're investing a ton into AI on the theory that AI is going to like 20x everything. And it's not. The improvement is like 20%. And I think that there's a ceiling here on how good the AI can get. There's going to be a point at which they're not getting enough growth out of their AI investments that whole thing is just going to collapse, and then it could tear the rest down with it. But it's mostly AI spend. In fact, oh man, I wish I could remember where I saw these charts from, but everything that I've seen has basically been companies are not spending anything on people and are just dumping everything into AI compute. It does feel internet bubblish to me. You know what though? When the internet recession happened, it never, as a kid at least, seemed to me that like they were getting too far ahead of themselves on the internet. Because I mean, I was on the internet and active during that whole time. And what I saw was, well, we had a recession because of 9/11, you know, like. They're pre-selling AGI, but don't have the technology to build it because it's different than generative AI. Yeah, what my experience with it so far has been that it does not 10x, 20x your developers. That it's a 20% increase in efficiency at best. That it doesn't really address the biggest bottlenecks in software development anyways. And that it doesn't replace people because you still have to have somebody that knows what's going on to drive the AI. So this idea that like we can just dramatically reduce headcount and rely on AI for everything, I think is misguided. And I mean, it's that pendulum, right? Like, you can only ignore the workers for so long before that's going to come back and bite you in the butt. The question is just, how long does it take for that to happen? Because I kind of thought that it would be a year and then we would be in that spot. And now here we are, and we're still kind of looking at like, well, maybe it'll be okay, and then we can grow from there, right? I don't know. Now I'm kind of thinking like, if we're going down this road and we don't see a change soon, it could be 10 years before, you know? My experience is good and bailing me out on simple things. What CSS do I use to do X or boilerplate like tasks, write tests for this, but that's about it. Generative AI doesn't have the abstract understanding or the creativity. Yeah. I mean, the crux of it is that it is a statistical model. So it's giving you the things that are like the most common. So that is useful because there's a lot, and I mean a lot of stuff going on at most tech jobs. There's nothing unique about it, right? It's just applying it to that particular company and situation. I personally find that AI can unlock a lot of creativity. That if you know how to use it, you can kind of like, you know, take this thing and stack them on top of each other and get something out that I don't think I would ever be able to do on my own. Yeah, 6 ticks range. This is like incredibly tight. Actually, I'd almost say unusually tight. Like, I expected it to be a little bit better than this. I don't know. For me, it's that the AIs are just not able to handle complexity, right? Like, I can come into a company and I can say, okay, we need to improve the build and observability at this company, and then go out and do it, right? You can't just say that to an AI and expect it to go out and do that well. Not even close, right? It's going to get like 2 or 3 steps in and then get caught in some sort of stupid loop. But if I give it something very, very specific, the code looks like this, we need to change it to look like this, and I can give it clear success criteria. Like, I use it with I found it really useful with Terraform, because I run into these situations where like, I got like 80 to 150 resources on even small projects, right? And I want to do something like, oh, if there's this infrastructure that already exists, and we just need to go and get the import statements for it, right? It does that really, really well. It'll go out there, it knows the queries to use for AWS to get and it knows what the ARN or whatever that type of resource needs to be able to import it. And then it just goes and it writes all of the import statements. And then I just have to double check its work, essentially. And for me to go through the dashboard or to come up with commands myself to do that stuff, it would take way longer. It would take way longer. But I'm able to give it, that's where it's like a very specific thing. Here's these resources that we have already. You need to go find import statements for them. If you're successful, then everything in this project that is currently trying to be created will be imported instead. Then AI is really powerful. Oh boy, Destiny goes off on Trump linking Tylenol use with autism. I don't like Destiny, so I'm not going to watch that. Did you guys have anybody followed this at all? I was a little bit perplexed yesterday. They came out, the U.S. administration came out and basically said that using Tylenol leads to increased risk of during pregnancy leads to increased risk of autism in the child. I knew this already. I mean, I've seen studies on this. There's been multiple studies on this. And I would say from all of the studies that I've seen that there is a mild but statistically significant effect there. I think it's kind of silly to say that, like, it's just Tylenol use, but it's probably a major factor. You know, I saw yesterday they said Well, you know, like maybe they're getting better at identifying autism, right? But what about the people that have like what we would call profound autism? Like people that they cannot support themselves whatsoever, right? Okay, we're not underdiagnosing those. You can't miss profound autism. And the incidence of profound autism has been increasing. And I've seen numbers between 40 and 70% over the last 16 years. So that says to me, it's not just that people are, that we are identifying it more. No, there has been an increase in it. And it's probably for a variety of factors. I think, well, Tylenol is probably one of them. Certain, you know, environmental toxins might potentially have an effect there. Certain behaviors during pregnancy might have an effect there. I also think that you're probably just seeing autistic individuals are being more successful in the mating market because there are some things about autism that can give you an advantage. Women are having their kids at an older age. It could be that. Yeah, that could affect it. And women are, you know, just in general, the population is not as healthy as it was, you know. Weight, like too much weight during pregnancy is a huge issue. But anyways, you go and they reference a new study, I think that's like a meta study, basically looking at the Tylenol usage. And I'm not an expert on this stuff, right? But just like my precursory reading of it is that it's true that Tylenol does increase the chances of autism. It seems silly to blame it just on that, but it is true. And everybody is just deriding. Like, why am I not seeing any discussion on whether or not the research is legitimate? You notice that? Like we're talking about something empirical. Why is there not an empirical discussion happening right now? I couldn't find anywhere, not anywhere on social media, where people were actually talking about the efficacy of the study itself. How crazy is that? Yeah, because Trump said it, so it's not true. Well, it's because RFK Jr. said it, so it must not be true. The funniest thing is that if you go on the far right subreddits, they're all talking about vaccines. Like, this is just a scapegoat so that they don't look into vaccines. Oh my gosh. The thing I was waiting for as well, if it wasn't true, then Big Pharma and a Tylenol brand or two would be angrily fighting Trump right now, but wouldn't they be? Well, then not them directly. Maybe not them directly, but... I'm just reading this thread now, and this guy is saying, what's the motive for this anti-Tylenol stuff? Are they trying to shake down a company or something like that? Well, there's been research for years that Tylenol increases the incidence of autism. Man. It's just like the effect was small. It was kind of like, not sure. They did a meta study. I think was pretty conclusive that yes, it does. I don't know. I don't know, man. Why am I not seeing discussion about the empirical data? Watch, it's gonna become a flashpoint, because I'm already seeing guys on the right memeing about, you know, people taking Tylenol. Yeah, I'm browsing through here. I'm seeing a lot of threads about it now. None about the actual science of it. The one that surprised me was I went to like /r/autism. It's not oh, okay. Community highlights. Fact-checking Trump and RFK's remarks. RFK said the department identified an exciting therapy that may benefit large numbers of children who suffer from autism, referring to leucovorin, yes. Which every doctor that I've heard talking about leucovorin says it does sound like it can help. Why would anybody care about the facts or reading the reason? Yeah. So let's see. What are they going to say? The rates of autism have increased largely due to increased awareness of this disorder and changes in how it is classified by medical professionals. This rate that is referenced is based on diagnosis and doesn't necessarily mean autism has increased, just that the diagnosis is out. I don't believe that, to be honest with you, anymore. I thought that was the case, but I have seen some pretty convincing evidence based on looking at profound autism, cases that you're not going to miss, that it's not just how they diagnose it. Although there certainly would be, like, if you were talking like level 1 autism, that'd be a different thing. So here, then they're talking about vaccines, acetaminophen. Pregnant women are already advised to take acetaminophen sparingly, according to the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecologists. Well, tell my wife that, because she didn't. When I told her this, she said that was ridiculous. Fevers pose a risk to both the mother and the developing fetus. Studies have been conducted to evaluate a connection between acetaminophen use and autism have so far been inconclusive. Okay, well, but what about the study that they presented? Oh, wait, maybe they're going to... The administration is citing a literature review published last month. Outside researchers have reviewed the article, saying the review wasn't rigorously conducted and that it cherry-picked studies that supported its conclusion. The review's senior author, Andre Accarelli, served in 2023 as a paid expert in a class action lawsuit against acetaminophen manufacturers. Oh, you mean they picked the best expert on it to testify? Okay. In which he testified that there was a link between the medication and autism. A judge excluded his testimony for being scientifically unsound and last year dismissed the case, which is currently under appeal. A study last year published in the Journal of American Medical Association found no link between acetaminophen use in pregnancy and autism. When the researchers looked solely at children with autism, there was a small increased risk possibly associated with acetaminophen. Oh, okay. But when the researchers compared siblings within the same families, the link disappeared. The comparison allowed them to control for variables that past studies couldn't. Siblings that... So are they saying perhaps that there is some other factor that makes you more likely to have autism that also makes you more likely to take acetaminophen during pregnancy? See, like the thing that I would be expecting to see is like, here's the meta study that they had. Here's all of the problems with it. They kind of, in this particular one, their primary problem was the author of it, and that the judge dismissed the case about this. But it seems to me like that the science around this is still happening. Which, you know, I don't know. These are the sorts of things, exactly the sorts of things that I would expect to happen. Like, can you imagine if I was able to sue the makers of Tylenol for my child being autistic? If I could sue for that? That would be a huge deal, right? So, of course, there's going to be interests out there to say no. But what I care about is the empirical evidence. And they said the review wasn't rigorously conducted. How so? What's wrong with their empirical evidence? Like everything that I'm reading in here, okay, they're talking about the review author, they're talking about this court case. Those are logical fallacies. What's the empirical data? It's just like arguing with people about technical analysis, man. My stepbro just got his girl pregnant. I'll take one for the team and run a test or two. Yeah, you know, one of the things was that my wife experienced things in her pregnancy with my son that was autistic that were unusual for her. And so we decided to have like the DNA test taken just so that we would be aware and prepared. But it didn't detect autism.
Order submitted.
I was kind of waiting for the robot to do something. Because usually that makes terrible decisions in super tight action like this, right? That's a curious move there. How is that not, Trump is proposing a new H-1B process. I feel like for some reason I'm losing the ability to sit and watch this and be patient about it. I feel like that I'm supposed to be doing something, you know? Too much anxiety, I guess. I'm interested to see if my robot gets anything out of that, because that jump was interesting. I was curiously before the open, so it could be related to that. Like maybe somebody's planning on coming in and selling equities. Nope, that wasn't positive. 2004 study looked at sibling controls as a means of controlling for confounding factors. At the time, the NIH viewed this as a strength. The 2025 review, on the other hand, claimed that sibling controls present a high risk of bias and used it to justify discounting the NIH study in favor of smaller, earlier studies. Oh, I thought that Luke O'Vorin was not. Turns out Dr. Oz makes it. I thought that it was like you had a prescription you had. It kind of looks to me like that the algo did pick up on somebody doing the big buy, and that it's just there was a big buy and it's done. S&P looks like it's going to jump here. So we still got 10 minutes before anything interesting happens for us, though, yeah? Now I need to come to this back to this Reddit thread and sort it by controversial. Yeah, there you go. Stephen J. Frischman, president of the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, issued a statement 2 hours ago stressing that acetaminophen is considered safe. The conditions people use acetaminophen to treat during pregnancy are far more dangerous than any of the theoretical risks and can create severe morbidity and mortality for the pregnant person and the fetus. And this guy says, such a crappy statement. Many people use it for a headache or something mild. Has he actually calculated the equivalent risks? If not, the sound advice to give would be to avoid the drug unless suffering from a severe fever, which is correlated with significant threat to the woman and the fetus. I agree. Morning source news update. Well, so we're gonna get the PMIs here in about 10 minutes, and then probably we'll see our markets move a bit more. some people concerned about somehow going to limit the rights of autistic people. No, I don't think so, but families with a higher risk for ADHD are more likely to use acetaminophen for longer durations. I don't know. I kind of feel like I'm having a deja vu with this autism thing. Just like whenever I get into an issue like this, like for me, it's with Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. Because I have ulcerative colitis. And it's just like, oh, the science that we have on it isn't that good. Like, I find it kind of bizarre that it's always like the discussion that I see online is like, well, that's not scientifically blah, blah, blah. But like I'd never see the discussion that is like our understanding of this is quite limited. But they act like we know everything. And that's what I'm seeing with this one is there's still an argument over whether this correlation exists or not. There's still some argument over whether in rates of autism are actually increasing or not. And I'm not really seeing very solid scientific consensus. Ooh, Jean-Philippe Bouchot got interviewed by the Financial Times. I have to read that. Yep. There's some spying explanation for why the stock market keeps marching higher, almost impervious to bad news. The gush of money into cheap, mindless, passive investment strategies. And if those flows ever reverse, the result will be carnage. Mm-hmm. When millennials start to retire, so much money will be coming out of the market relative to what's going in that they are going to have to massively inflate the money supply to counter it. Which basically means inflation. They'll inflate away all your savings.
Order canceled.
Okay. Oh, I didn't notice that it had gone short. Okay, it sounds like that the numbers were lower than forecast. My financial juice is not showing me. There we go. Okay. So services was 53.9 versus the expected 54. Manufacturing was 52 versus the expected 52.2. So that doesn't look like too big of a difference. Both of them above 50 is good. I thought that services was below 50, but yeah. So in the report, the chief economist, Mr. Williamson, is basically saying that margins are being squeezed. That like less companies have reported being able to pass on the cost increases. They've just had to eat the margins. You see what's going on. You get what I've been saying. You have the tariffs come in. It increased the costs for everybody, but because consumers are already strapped, you can't increase the costs on the consumer. The result is that the company just has to eat that margin change, which means less profit for the company. Now the company can hire less people. And that's why you've got a labor market that's behaving the way that it is, because the companies are terrified to add too many people. They can't afford to hire more people. And eventually, that is something that could result in a recession. The tariff is, at its heart, well, should I say at its heart? It is anti-growth, at least in the short term. Maybe there are benefits from it, and maybe those benefits are worth it. But I can only say at this point, pretty conclusively, that it hurts short-term growth. And that it hurts short-term growth more than it increases costs on consumers. So that would suggest that you should be cutting interest rates. Not like dragging them down dramatically like the president wants, but like, yeah, a rate cut and then maybe another rate cut and slowly over time, yeah. Well, there was definitely some order flow and movement off of it, but it already kind of looks like it's calmed down and that they don't really see too much significant from this. At the top of the hour, we got Bostic and the Richmond Fed Composite Index. There is also later today, Trump is speaking, Powell is speaking. There's a 2-year auction, so it might be tight. I do think we got more tomorrow. What was it? Let's go to the calendar. Oh no, tomorrow is new home sales. It's not until Thursday that we get significant news, so.
Order submitted.
We're going short, huh? Kind of going into like checking Zero Hedge and other places. Slow news day today. I think everybody is still suffering from a Charlie Kirk hangover. Like we've been so geared into the news and reading so much and everything, and now it's just kind of like, ugh, you're so exhausted from it. Newsletter. Would you guys enjoy a newsletter if I made a Substack? Seems like the Substack thing is so popular. I'm thinking about well, I don't know what goes on, but I am kind of feeling like the 90-minute stream is kind of rough, you know? I'm not going to stop doing it, but I don't know how much we can really grow our channel and all of that with it, you know? Would a newsletter be a better format for some of the things that we talk about? You know? I actually, you know, that's interesting. Now, I don't know when I would do it, but I'm kind of thinking, you know, a newsletter would actually be a good exercise for me. Because it would force me to, you know, when I'm talking about something like that, maybe the labor market is not as strong as it appears, right? would really require me to come in and like collect all of the data and make like a really sound argument about it, you know? So it would force me to become more of an analyst. I think that would be a good thing. But I was also thinking, because I keep getting companies, they want me to review like KVM switches and stuff. And it's there's the people that send me the KVM switch, they're just so insistent. They're like, well, we're gonna send you another one. We're gonna send it. We send you now, okay? So now I'm thinking that maybe I just need to make a separate channel just for that stuff. You know? Maybe that should be the evolution that we go through here. While we're waiting, because part of me wants to just be like, I think that originally, when we took the break, my thinking was, I just need to hunker down and build the software. And now I think, well, I'm not sure if now is the right timing for it anyways. And I just would need more time to really put into it to do that sort of a thing, to like hunker down and just only focus on that. And meanwhile, everything else is atrophying. So what I actually need to do is I need to adjust the content over here a little bit. Take the bit of content that is doing well and split that off so that you can really go all in on, well, not all in, but you know, it gives you more freedom there. It's in a separate channel. And then, you know, the kind of insights that we get here, we still do the stream, but then I spend some more time writing a newsletter for it. And that would maybe grow the channel more better than streaming. And then I just have to continue slowly building until we get to the point where it makes sense. Now, another thing is I could try going harder in on our NinjaTrader indicators. That's another thing is I feel like that I don't do a very good job promoting them. But every time that I try to promote them, I don't get very much from it. So I don't know what to do there. But anyways. Well, it is 7:55, so it is time for me to get going, guys. I will see you tomorrow. It'll be a quieter day, but it's okay. We can still do... Maybe I can do some programming during that stream. That's another thing, is I can always just program on stream while we chat. I'm good enough that I can chat about these things and then still program. So, but anyways... Maybe think about that. Maybe you have some comments for me tomorrow. In the meantime, stay excellent, team.